Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Monday night, about 10:30 in the PM, California time. September 23rd, 2024 is the date. Latest activity shows a 2.6 into the Alaska region up here. Looking at the last 24 hours of earthquake activity, well, we did see a little bit of larger movement out here today across areas of the Western Pacific and around the Indonesia Islands area, with a fairly deep 6-pointer coming in earlier this afternoon, 92 miles deep here. Watch this area for some potential larger scale movement. This deeper activity does tend to put a little bit of strain out here. In fact, let's see, following that 6-pointer, we had a swarm of earthquake activity, mainly up north here across the Japan area, with some adjustment taking place out here. Across the Japan Trench and the southern end here of the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. A little bit of adjustment down here. Looks like it allowed for some further progress here of the Pacific Plate and the interaction here within that plate boundary. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that area. As far as California goes, let's go ahead and see what we have. 2.5 and above. Let's see here. One more earthquake, about 1310. So it's going to be just about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. A 2.9 coming in here in the San Joaquin Valley. A rather odd earthquake here. Let's go ahead and check out the satellite view. I don't believe we got any fracking operations out here. It looks like it's in an orchard. And got some houses out here as well. So a little odd earthquake, and it's a very shallow quake at the surface level. It's underneath automatic status, so this could get revised. And to be honest, well, it looks like a couple folks there reported feeling this earthquake, but hard to say exactly on the correct magnitude and location there for that quake that came in. I have to check and see if they review this throughout the evening. Kind of odd that they haven't even got to it yet. Southern California down here, any adjustments going on across the area? 2.5 map and above. There's that 2.9 over here across a weird area in the Inglewood region. We really haven't seen a whole lot of earthquake activity here recently, and specifically in this area. 2.9 and a more recent 1.6 just a couple minutes later. Aside from that, not a whole lot here across the Malibu area for now. I'll be down there in a day or so. Fontana area, still seeing a little bit of swarming out here in a separate area in the new region. And I say that because the swarm area was over here last few weeks. Looks like there's a migration here a little bit further closer to the east that we'll have to watch. Some minimal movement across the San Andreas Fault for now, and as you can see here on the map, a handful of various earthquakes all over the place there in Southern California. Nothing big. A handful of earthquakes also here across the area of this little chunk of land south of the Garlock Fault shear zone, 1.7, and also a little earthquake here in the Ludlow area, 1.6. Further up north here, across the area of the Parkfield segment of the San Andreas Fault, mainly smaller quake activity here across that creeping section north, and a handful of smaller earthquakes on the extreme southern end of the Parkfield section of the San Andreas Fault. Northern California, pretty quiet. The Bay Area has been awfully quiet here recently. Not a whole lot going on there at all. In fact, the majority of the movement here appears to be centered around the Southern California area. Not a whole lot of migration up north, where occasionally we'll see a couple smaller earthquakes up here. This region right here, this is just something that occurs on any given day. There's a whole process involved here. In fact, if you look, coming up on 1,000 earthquakes here across the Clear Lake volcanic field. Now, if one didn't know, they may think it's volcanic in nature, right? That this thing's about ready to blow. That is not the case. If you zoom in here to this area, there's literally, I don't know how many, but quite a few of these hydrothermal plants, these power-producing plants here, that inject material down below the surface there into the heated area to create some type of steam there that in turns creates energy. And then that powers some of the homes out there across the Bay Area. But earthquake activity, very common out here in this region. There's a whole process involved we're not going to go into tonight. Washington swarm area, last earthquake of 1.8. A little swarming out there. A little uncertain onto where this is leading to, but we're coming up on 100 earthquakes out here. Really no sign of any type of... somebody said that this was a shooting range, but unless they're... Yeah, I don't know what they would be blowing up out here, but this is earthquake activity. Obviously, look at that 5 miles below the surface for this movement. It's just in a really odd area and a little uncertain onto what this is leading to. But we'll continue to watch that and report back on any changes there. Yellowstone National Park, nothing showing up there for now. In fact, I've been using the Maple Creek seismograph station here to show you guys what's going on, and there's really not a whole lot. This is some wind or some thunderstorm activity earlier, maybe a little speck of an earthquake there, but what we got about 4 or 5 hours or so ago, and I can show you guys. We'll get to the hurricane activity here in a minute, but I want to show you guys. Did not mean to go to that one. I want to go to this one, and we'll check out here the last 6 hours of radar here. And it should show some thunderstorm activity out here. It's either thunderstorm or a wind activity out there that normally gives off that reading on the seismograph station there at Yellowstone. 6 hours, man, nothing popping up here. Could it be some wind? Let me see here. Earlier this afternoon, yeah, see, look at that. That was about 4 hours ago. Some heavy-duty wind out there across Yellowstone National Park, and I'm sure some of these areas a little bit higher. So if this was calm and no rain or thunderstorms, then I'd look into it a little bit better. But this is not anything of any concern for that seismograph reading. Just some wind, outside noise. Texas and Oklahoma, about the same. Really nothing major going on. A little swarming out here across the oil fields. As you can see, there's quite a bit out here. Satellite view, oh yeah, all those little small dots or boxes, those little checkered boxes, those are all oil pads and whatnot. All right, so we did, we had that 6-pointer, pretty decent size earthquake, and also a 5-pointer there into the Argentina area. Fairly deep there, about 90 miles deep here into the Pruchile Trench. This area has, we've been seeing quite a bit of earthquake activity out here in the last 7 days or so. And the majority of these quakes here deeper into the area. There's that 6-pointer from a couple days ago, 81 miles deep here. It looks like we're getting deeper in terms of the adjustment downstream here into the Pruchile Trench, some of the deeper areas. And that could be a little concerning because we could be talking about some bigger earthquake activity out here. A lot of deep activity tends to trigger some larger stress out here across the subduction zone locked area. So we'll keep an eye on that region potentially for some larger activity. Smaller quakes here across the Puerto Rico area. Latest, a 2.6 here in this little swarm region. This area of Puerto Rico sees a lot of swarming activity on any given day. It's been relatively quiet over the last couple months, but I know past couple years or so to get this periodic swarming activity, and that's due to the strain out here against the Mariotas Trough, Puerto Rico Trench, uplift here going on, putting a squeeze, so to speak, and the rising here of the subduction zone on the Puerto Rico area, and that's why we always see a little bit of swarming activity out there. And today, no exception, just nothing big going on for now. Kilauea Volcano, let's go check this out real quick, give a quick overview, which is not at an orange now. It's still, they revised this to a yellow and advisory due to the eruption being over. And a little uncertainty, though, onto what is going to happen next. Here's our most recent lava flow in the Middle East Rift Zone. Very skimpy, if you ask me, in terms of the volume that was produced. But whether that's enough to relieve strain down there below the subsurface for a little while, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Deformation data, a little sharp rise here in the last few hours, but really not all that much. Here's our decline here back on the 15th of September. when we've seen that huge volume of magma from the summit move off to the upper East Rift Zone and Middle East Rift Zone to where the eruption took place here recently. But this year, not really concerning. That's just, it does look like it's going up a little bit, but nothing spectacular. Earthquake activity out here around the Middle East Rift Zone. Let's take a look here at, I guess this one will work, seismograph station there. Not a whole lot going on, just some smaller earthquake activity. It's hard to say exactly what's going to take place here now. I think we need to wait for some further inflow of magma to the Middle East Rift Zone, and then from there we'll look at what takes place out here. But I think we're going to enter into a little bit of quietness for now across this area due to the skimpy but somewhat a little bit of depletion of the magma below. Let's see here. New Zealand area. There's a 5.1 Kermadec Trench. A little bit later, super deep, 122 mile deep, 4.3. Now, some would say that could be associated with the southern end of the Kermadec Trench, or maybe the northern end here of the Hikurangi subduction zone. Hard to say, but that's a super deep earthquake in that area. A minimal adjustment downstream here across the plate boundary. New Zealand's on one of those the plates here that really haven't seen any large. I mean, a while back, quite a few years back here, they had the Christchurch earthquake, but there's many other faults out here that are well overdue. And the Hikurangi subduction zone that just sits offshore here is a potential player of mega quakes, and that's been a little while too since we've seen any significant movement on that area. So we'll keep an eye on it. There's a Japan activity clustering going on there across the Philippines. And over here across the Mediterranean, goodness, we got a whole bunch of swarming going on all over the place here. This is a broader scale event that's taken place across the Mediterranean. Nothing showing up here from the USGS map, surprisingly. Let me check out the EMSC model here real quick. See where this is specifically happening. I mean, obviously it looks like it is following some of the plate boundaries out there, but there's a lot of sporadic earthquake activity, not only in just various areas, but on a broad scale kind of event. So something may be stirring up out here. Again, not just any one location, it's more on a broader scale. And, a handful, definitely a handful of some minor to moderate earthquake activity out here. We'll continue to watch. Nothing showing up there on the USGS map, though. The Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet out there. Not a whole lot going on. A little bit of movement across the Azores here. Some older activity up north and down south. Pretty quiet. What have we got? California coming in right now. A little 1.1. Let me see where that's at real quick. On San Jacinto Fault Zone. Yeah, I'm going to be down here on Thursday. Going to shoot for a Thursday time period to come down here and check out the area around the landslides. They've had some historic landslides out here where this beautiful hillside area is starting to slip away here into the Pacific. I'm going to go down there and investigate some of the activity, maybe some of the irrigation that goes on when they receive a lot of rain. That could have something to do with the deterioration of the land itself. And then I'll be up here across the Malibu area as well, checking out the Malibu Coast Fault here in a couple days. Pretty excited. I've never actually been down there, so this will be a cool little geology study. Space weather activity. Well, there's our blackout coming in right now every 24 hours. A number of sunspots that we're watching here. And from the looks of this UV filter here on the sun, pretty bright over here, indicating some decent flaring going on from that sunspot. Now that is sunspot number 3836. That was, I can't remember what the name was last time it was out here around the Earth-facing side, but it's gone around the sun, no telling how many times, to where it's at right now. This sunspot here definitely fairly large in coverage, and there is a couple independent cores here, or a group cluster of cores of magnetic complexity that might harbor some stronger flaring once we get a little bit better view of that. And then another one behind that. Let me show you guys the far side watch here. 923. So this is fairly recent. Here's that area of sunspot I was just showing you guys. There's actually another one behind that, which will be visible here in a couple days. But expect some flaring from this region. That's one of the cat's eyes out here. Still got a little facial feature out there of a. It still looks like a cat to me. Maybe a little cat over here as well. See the two little eyes, a mouth, and some ears. Little creepy looking. I mean, looking at this, I guess you could draw faces all day long out there, right? Goodness. So flare threat right now, 5% chance for X flare, M flare at 35, C flare around 99% chance or so. Looks like we may see a G1 class storm coming up here on the 25th here, UTC time 25th. Not for sure exactly where that's coming from. Maybe just some typical solar wind stream, maybe. Somewhat of a CME was produced from that most recent flare, that M flare. So it looks as though this is going to be one of those near hits or near miss. Depends on how you look at it for that G1 class storm coming up on the 25th. But in that position, that's a ways over there on the eastern limb of the sun. I don't think we're going to see much of it, even though that was a fairly decent CME. I guess we'll have to see what happens here around this time period. All right, hurricane activity, right? Looking at potential strong hurricane there across the Florida area. Latest GFS model runs. This is a little bit higher in pressure with this latest GFS model run, but still hitting the Florida area, Panhandle area, with a lot of rain and sure a lot of wind as well. From the National Hurricane Center here, we got potential tropical storm. Tropical Cyclone 9 here. Now the forecast here is calling for pretty much a due northward track here across Florida. Landfall around 8 p.m. Thursday. Now this thing is starting to strengthen a little bit. It will rapidly strengthen once it gets past this little area here in between the Cuba region and Mexico. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. I think everyone's getting prepared already for it. Good idea. Model runs are showing they're backing down a little bit. Earlier there was a couple social media posts saying that this was going to be up around a Category 5 hurricane. Now the models have trended down, and most of them are showing, if you were to average these out, probably a upper 1, maybe Category 2. But you notice a lot of these weather models are backing down even from the 3 level. But we don't really know specifically what's going to take place and how strong it's going to be until it gets there in the warmer waters of the Gulf, out there in the open a little bit. And we'll see and report back on that. But definitely not anything to mess around with, as the majority of the weather models are forecasting a direct impact there on the Florida Panhandle area. All right, folks, hope everyone has a good night. I'll be back out here tomorrow morning here for the Tuesday morning update. Seismograph stations are quiet as a mouse. Well, I don't know. A mouse can be kind of noisy, right? I don't know. They like to chew on things, so I don't think that's really quiet. But in terms of any seismograph readings out here, it looks fairly quiet for now. We got another 2-pointer coming into California. Hopefully I'm not jinxing it here. Let's see where that's at. That is near the Loma Linda area, northern end here of the San Jacinto fault zone. That earthquake just coming in within the last 5 minutes here. So we'll continue to keep an eye on it, folks. I mean, a lot of elevated activity out here recently, and little quiet periods, and then followed up by increasing periods of earthquake activity. It's just good to be on guard here due to all this elevated recent activity. We'll see you guys back out here in the morning. Enjoy your night and stay safe out there.